event series. I'm Aaron Falus, founder of Promotable, and your host for today's event. Awesome. Thanks for the clapped hands, however that was. Right now, we've got someone who has got amazing experience. Marta, she's got, Allstate, Hartford, really cool person. Before we dive into that, just a couple of quick announcements. So again, my name's Aaron, for those of you who don't know me. I see a lot of familiar faces and names, so feel free to say hello after the event as well. After this ends, we'll go back to the lounge. For those of you who have questions, so we're going to talk for 15, 20 minutes or so. Feel free to put your questions into the chat or raise your hand. And as soon as we're ready for Q&A, I'll go ahead and hand you the mic, and you can ask any question you want. And then aside from that, be on the lookout for our future events. So Promotable is a career accelerator for data science, closing that data science skill gap. So we do that through events like this, where we bring practitioners here to you, so you can flex those data muscles, whether you're a hardcore data scientist or just someone who wants to cut through some of the buzzwords. We provide content for folks just like you. And of course, for folks who want to dive deeper, we have our immersive 15-week data science bootcamp, next cohort launching in January. If anyone's interested, feel free to say hello to me after the event, or go ahead and direct message me. And with that, let's hand it off to Marta.
All right, well, thank you, Ed. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let's make sure that it works, and then we will get into the conversation. So now, can you confirm that it's visible?
Yep.
All right, so I just want to introduce myself and take you through my journey and talk to you about how do I got where I am, but not only that, is what interests me in data and analytics. And we will have a variety of topics that we can cover, and then I will take any questions throughout. I only have a few slides to start the conversation with us and get the creativity flowing for you guys. And then after that, we will just have an open mic session. It's meant to be very conversational. So I like to start Marta Magnuszewska. You don't have to remember my last name. It's probably the longest in Outlook in any of the organizations that I have worked with. But if you remember Marta M or MAG, you probably are good, and you can find me on LinkedIn or in any other social media apps that are available. So I don't think I have graduated college thinking that I'm going to work for insurance, or that my aspiration was to work for insurance. I graduated college with a bachelor's in science and a major in finance, with an aspiration to be a portfolio investor or a trader. And everything I did at school was focused on that, on portfolio management, on trading, on stock options, futures, anything that was related to a stock market. So for about 7 or 8 months, I worked at the organization, which was called Peak 6, and they were doing electronic trading, and I was becoming a trader. And at one moment I said, it's not really what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is not my passion. I don't know. It's not really changing. It's extremely stressful. Yes, it's interesting when you are making money, but so less interesting when you are not. So after that, I'm going to date myself a little here. So I put my resume on Career Builders, and Allstate called. And when the Allstate HR recruiter called, she did present a role of a senior product consultant to me doing data and analytics. And I literally told her, you must have a wrong number and a wrong person, because I know nothing about insurance. And she left. And she said, no, I'm actually looking at your statistical and mathematical skills versus insurance. I can teach you insurance knowledge. So after a few conversations with that HR recruiter, I was convinced that I should try out what is happening at Allstate and become the senior data analyst. And I did. So that's how my career started with Allstate Insurance. And I did product for a little bit. And then a few years later, I found out that we have special investigation unit at Allstate. And I was like, wow, we actually investigate fraud. That was extremely challenging and appealing to me. So that's when I started working for SIU Analytics team. It was a newly created team, many different change management and moving from one spectrum to the other. And we will talk more about that as I go through my slides. And that was interesting. And then I was asked to lead the team. So I became a leader of SIU Analytics and had a few people reporting to me across the country, sitting in different locations. So remote working was nothing new to me when pandemic started. And then after that, I was asked to lead and implement similar successes as I did at SIU on a bigger scale at the claims organization for Allstate. So I did that for a few years. And then I know Allstate was decreasing footprint here in Chicago. I'm not mobile and was worried that I'm going to be presented with a decision to move to Dallas, Texas. And sorry if any one of you are in Dallas, but that was not ideal for me. So I decided to look for a different opportunity. And that's how I ended up with John Beans Technology. John Beans Technology is a global organization. And if they have multiple product lines, but I always like to call the one that is very known to everyone. If you go and pick up chicken nuggets from McDonald's, John Beans Technology created the entire production line for McDonald's to fry 15,000 pounds of chicken nuggets in 45 minutes. A little gross, but data and analytics was needed to get this accomplished, and some innovation and engineering. So my role at John Beans was to be a senior global data leader, and I was responsible for connecting the dots and across the globe in different systems. But that was not a fast-paced enough for me, so I decided I want to go back to financial industry, and that's how I ended up as an AVP of data science at Hartford. So I had a variety of roles, but I'm going to speak to the slide right now that you guys are seeing. The future is now. And why do I love those words. So I came across them a few years ago when I was attending the Digital Insurance Conference. EVP of Allstate actually he was a key speaker, and he started the conference with those words. He said, the future is now. And the reason why is because I've presented at that conference as well, but the focus was on how innovation and digitalization is happening in the insurance industry. But if we think about this today, every company, regardless if you're insurance, financial, manufacturing, or company that I worked for a few years, or any other organization, everyone is trying to use data science, data analytics, data engineering in order to improve their processes, in order to get better, in order to get more effective. But in my mind, those companies are really divided into three different groups. So if you think about the software and the software companies or insurtechs or any technology companies, and maybe marketing, I can group into that group as well. They use data because they cannot operate without using data and analytics. That's where predictive analytics, that's where data science, that's where all real-time data consumption is a must, because otherwise they are not able to exist because they have to reach out to the customers in real time. Then you go into financial industries, right? And that's where insurance kind of fits in, because insurance has been always using data. Their actuarial teams, anything that was done in insurance was based on data. But a few years ago, insurance companies have decided that this data could be applied to processes. This data could be applied to almost real-time decision making, and started accelerating the usage of data. That's when things became interesting, and that's where the future is now. Many insurance companies are going through a digitalization transformation, either right now or they have started. The journeys are different across different organizations, but they either, whatever they are, but everyone is trying to get more appealing to our customers, which are millennials, and they expect different type of interactions with insurance company than maybe some of the prior customers or other generations. And then the third bucket is everyone else, and that's probably where John Beans was at, and many other organizations where they do want to use data, but there is not enough appetite, or there is not enough investment, or there's no need to be in real time, to be essentially very data science and predictive analytics driven. So that future is very different for everyone. It all depends on what type of an organization you are working for, or and how mature is that organization. So with that said, let me take you to the next slide. So I had a pleasure to actually work across the maturity spectrum of analytics at different organizations. Some organizations, even at Allstate, some of my engagements were in the very information portal, right? It's, yes, very reactive type of data usage. It's more of a reporting, and although some of those Excel, are extremely challenging, they have macros running behind the scenes and so on, but it's still an Excel. It's not a systematic way of data usage. There's really more of a business rules and just reports, and in reactive because no real-time data ingestions. And then there are organizations that have realized that and want to be more proactive and move into the analytics workbench. And I have been able to implement that analytics workbench, for example, at Allstate SIU team, Special Investigation Unit team, where we moved from being more of a reactive to proactive organizations. We've created self-service tools, build data pipelines using whatever technology was available, start sharing the data that we had across the organization with different teams and so on, and enable our SIU investigators with data that was available to them on a daily basis to do more of an analytics, to inform their decisions, to ask questions that were data driven. But obviously that was not enough. It still created a possibility for SIU to be more of a proactive, which that's what the goal was, making us more of a proactive versus reactive organization. That's when we moved into the advanced analytics. And that's when either alert mechanism or statistical calculations, such as some predictive models, are happening. And then a combination of self-service dashboards and predictive modeling. I think that's the power of what have transformed the SIU organization to be very proactive versus reactive to what was going on in Allstate. And then you have the artificial intelligence, right? That's your natural language processing, that's your AI. And there are organizations and everyone, even in the financial industry, is aiming to go there. But could we fully say that this is developed? Probably not yet. So if you look at this graph that I have right now, it all depends on where the organization, either that you are working with or working for, is which maturity level are they at. And then skills of individual teams, of leaders, are always matched with that maturity level. But I think the key goal, what I want to share with you today, is an ability to move from one end to the other and apply innovation and make things sustainable, make things repeatable. So if you're thinking about working with different stakeholders and you're trying to craft a message to a stakeholder, you have to understand where do they fit in this analytical maturity. If your business leaders are fully just using Excel spreadsheets, you really cannot talk to them about natural language processing because that might not be a language that they understand. You have to take them through the journey of what is possible and what could be done. And I think that's what I did a lot at John Bean's Technology. So for 2 years, I was able to introduce what type of analytics is available, what could we do with the data, how could this look a little differently. And I feel good leaving the organization with more informed and introduced to modern technology and introduced to the what's possible. And same thing, if I think that the one goal that Erin we talked about is how do we communicate, or how do we connect with our stakeholders? And that's important to understand at what maturity level and where they are. It doesn't mean that you have to go from one to the other in sequential pattern. That's not needed. You don't have to go from information portal to analytics workbench, although it's helpful to do some introduction and taking people through change management process in an easier way. But if you can miss the analytics workbench altogether and combine the analytics workbench with advanced analytics, and introduce data science into that. And then aiming for artificial intelligence. And I think that the interesting part to me for my career, as I have discussed the different parts of the organizations where I was and how insurance or data analytics was not my dream job. I didn't graduate thinking I'm going to do predictive modeling or I'm going to be a leader of a data science. That was totally not on the horizon. But what kept me interesting throughout all these years, 15 plus years, is the constant change in that spectrum. So analytics is changing. This is one thing that is constantly evolving and changing, and new technology is being used, and things are being more advanced, and predictive models, right? We used SAS, and there's nothing wrong if people still use SAS, but it was very manual or more manual than needed for some of the modelers to write a modeling code and then do their modeling. Prior now, we have tools like Data Robot, and it kind of does it for you, and you just control your target variable and how you're going to use it and so on. So that's what kept me extremely interested in this field. And I loved seeing the change management that was happening within the organization and driving that change management within the organization, but also being able to personally learn something new almost every day and attend various conferences where new technology was presented or new methodology of data analytics or data science was presented, and taking it back to the organization. So if nothing else you heard in this slide, think about that it's constantly evolving, and as a leader, as individual contributor, as someone with aspirations to do data science or data analytics, you need to keep up with that evolvement. You need to keep up with what's on the market, and that's what's going to make your skills marketable, essentially, for data science and data analytics. I'm going to stop here and take a breather. I'm going to see if anyone have a question.
Feel free, folks, put your questions in the question section or grab the mic. Otherwise, I can also dive into some questions as well.
Yeah, I have one more slide that I can cover.
Yeah.
But after that, we can make it open.
Perfect. Yeah, if you want to just go into your next slide, then we'll open it up.
All right, so from my journey, like I said, the one thing that always have interested me is how to keep evolving within the space of analytics. But it's not only me, because Gartner just recently did a survey of different CEOs with various organizations across different industries, and they were looking on what's at the top of the mind. It's, with COVID hitting and organizations had to change drastically, some of them what they were doing and how they were doing, how they were meeting customers' needs, how they were interacting with each other. And the good thing is that, analytics is at the top of all CEOs' mind, which is extremely comforting for me. And it's all about the decision making, right? So data is being used to enable data-driven decisions. And it's a mouthful of words, right? What is a data-driven decision? What does it mean to enable data-driven decision? There are many examples that I can share with you from my personal career journey that it's possible. And we do this through dashboards, we do this predictive models, we do this through a combination of dashboards and models, we do this through data pipelining. And as a data science team or as a data science professional, I was able to develop or lead a team in developing different data pipelines that then drove dashboards drove decisions, dashboard drove drilling into the data, dashboards drew changes in how the teams were operating, right? And then adding predictive models, which helped with, this is what we thought was really happening, or how we should look for a needle of a haystack, especially fraud indications or anything else. And not really, because the predictive model is telling us or leading us in a better way, or giving us a better scoring or prioritization of where we should focus. So it is all about the decision making and how do we use data and how do we use analytics and how do we use data science and how do we combine all of this to enable better decision making. And when we say enable, obviously we have different audience, right? We could be dealing with individual contributors that we can share this information with, or we could be dealing with leadership teams, or we could be supporting even individuals performing and doing the work with different data points that are helping with decision making. So for me individually, and I think for everyone who's on this call, if you guys are interested in data science and data analytics, it's comforting to know that the top CEO or the top answer on a CEO's mind is analytics and artificial intelligence, right? Because that's essentially where we as a profession, and we can keep evolving, and there's a job security. And if nothing else, I always say that for the few years now, analytics was actually ranked as the sexiest job on the market. So that's another, I always say, I'm glad I picked up that phone from Allstate and went through with the whole HR hiring process to start my analytics career. So I just wanted to get some ice breaks with what I shared with you and how this helped for me and within my career journey. But I think now we are ready to either open the mic or Erin, have any questions that were submitted prior to this conversation. I'd be happy to talk about them.
Awesome. I think we have a question coming in, but while we wait, I'd love to talk about, because now obviously you've built teams at multiple different companies. Obviously, to your point, depending on what level of maturity you're at, you're looking for different skill sets. But is there something that, like, when you go through when you're interviewing for a data scientist for your team, is there like a certain skill set you look for, or what does that process look like with you?
Yeah, so great question. Thank you. The data science team have a variety of roles, right? And when I say variety of roles, it's a combination of data engineering, data scientists, business analysts, or data analysts, whatever titles that the organization might have. And if the organization is fully adopted the agile transformation, then you have Scrum Masters and so on and so forth. But I think for me, I have definitely hired many data analysts and many data engineers and some communication managers. And when the top of mind for me was always someone who is fluid enough to help the team move within the analytical maturity. And there are obvious skill sets, like if you're applying for a data engineer, then you need to know how to code, and you need to understand the most used or the most prominent technology on the market, right? If you're applying for a data analyst role, you need to understand how you analyze the data and how you're going to share your findings with the audience, how you're going to understand what your audience might want. And that's the maturity level comes into play, right? If you are applying for a data scientist role, you need to know how to write predictive models. You need to understand the difference of predictive modeling and machine learning and artificial intelligence and and natural language processing, and how do they all come together, and what skills do you have, and you can showcase that you will be comfortable in doing that type of work. But I think at the end of the day, it's really hard for a hiring manager within a 3 hours interview or how many ever interviews, sometimes depends on how they are. Sometimes it's an interview panel to get a full assessment if someone has all the skills. So what I've always focused on is for an individual who can showcase to me that they are being creative and that they are willing to learn. And when I say willing to learn, it's not only learning about the job or the job that they will be doing, the tools that they will be using, but being able to understand how data and analytics, how the industry is changing, being able to, to be just interested in what's available and how do I change my skills? How do I become more marketable? Because not only that I understand, I'm willing to learn that new tool. I'm willing to move from SAS to Python, or from Spark to Python, or from whatever tool that the company is using to maybe what is currently on the market, and what the new tool that's available. Or and if I'm willing to learn how to not only do Excel KPIs, but how to use Tableau, or how to create dashboards, how to communicate, how to tell a story with data. So creativity, learning, and communication. Those were kind of my three focusing on every interview that I have done, regardless of the role. And obviously, as a hiring manager, we will cue the questions to the appropriate role. But outside of demonstrating the skills that are needed to do the job, is how creative are you? Because if you're creative, you're going to be able to solve problems in a creative way. And how fluid are you on change? Are you going to be able to learn if we decide tomorrow that we're going to sunset Tableau and move to a totally different tool? How open are you to that switch? And then are you able to communicate with your audience?
Yeah, no, that's a really good answer. And I also appreciate that you focus on the fact that there are so many different roles in the data space, because I feel like so many times we just throw data science out there, and then most people don't really talk about the difference between, if you're an analyst, what that means versus if you're a data scientist. So that's super helpful. We've got a few questions coming in, so I'm going to hand the mic to Pratik and then Linnell, and then get to some of the questions that came in.
Okay.
Hi, Pratik, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hi, Marta. Thank you for doing this, first of all. I had recently an interview for junior marketing analyst role, and I got rejected from from the very second last round. And I got really constructive feedback from the manager and the team itself, which was really helpful. And the feedback I got is you have to, the candidate they hired, they had more business analysis or more hands-on approach. Even for the junior role, they got this kind of candidates. So my question for you is how to find this kind of things, how to get more hands-on experience when even for junior roles, they are looking for something with experience. So I mean, it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, which is really hard to solve. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find nonprofit orgs or any other small project that I can get my hands on. But yeah, still I can't solve this chicken and egg problem, and I'll love to have your feedback or any suggestion on this one. Thanks.
Sure. So yeah, I have a few things in mind. Throughout my career and even now, I do mentor in the organization where I am, but also outside the organization. So if any of you want to connect outside of this conversation, that would be fine as well. So one thing that I can recommend, and I'm going to speak to as a hiring manager. So when we hire for data analytics roles, or data engineers, or data science roles, we have to evaluate the skills that we have on the team. And for any of you that are applying for that position, it will be good to understand that as well. And that you can use this as a question during the interview process, and then maybe alter some of your conversations during the interview process to answer those questions. So as a hiring manager, I always do an assessment of what type of skills do I have on the team. Do I have everyone who is senior and I can afford to hire someone who is newer to that industry or newer to data and have showcased that they are willing to learn and they are hard learner and they have done some boot camps or maybe cloud or whatever else, but let's say boot camps with Aaron, right? But they have done some courses on their own in order to get acclimated with the industry. So that's always the hiring manager have to decide. If the team is new, and I have been at John Beans, I had a brand new team, and I could not afford someone who did not have a hands-on experience, because especially when the team is being built or developed, you have to understand that there's a huge ask from the stakeholders to deliver. And deliver quickly. It's almost yesterday, right? And answer questions, and do more than it's possible, because we want to showcase that there is a value in investment. Otherwise, if you think about this, CFOs and CEOs don't really want to keep investing if there is no return on investment that can be produced. So obviously, hiring managers have also the same battles as you are. Like, how do we hire the right person? And sometimes the right person might not have enough experience, but we have enough experience in the team that we can up a 6 months acclimation pattern, or we can afford a 6 months onboarding for someone to learn what we do and how we do it and then become good at this. Or if it's in your team and we cannot afford, sometimes we do have to pass candidates that are interesting and have, great aptitude in learning that, but don't have the hands-on. So one thing that I have recommended in some of the constructive feedback that I gave individuals that maybe were in your situation as well is, if you want to do data analytics, I know that Tableau, because I've used Tableau for the longest time now, I think since like 3.4 version. So you know how long I've used that. They are away from numbers now and into digits and years. But Tableau has few sessions. They are free sessions. Tableau has a huge community. So there's like Makeover Mondays. And in Makeover Mondays, they will share a data set with the participants on Friday, and you can download that data, and then you can do your dashboards, and you can create some of the visual analytics and answer the objective of this data and the question that is being presented with that. And then you will upload your workbook to there is a page, I don't remember all of that, but if you Google Makeover Mondays and Tableau, it has a whole list of where you need to upload what you have done with Tableau, and then they will critique this for you. So you're getting a hands-on exposure to a true analytics or something that it's obviously either dummy data or data that has been decoded if it's from a company. I don't even know if they share data that maybe just public data. But then you have an ability to work on data on an example. You have an ability to practice your analytic skills and how you are presenting the story, because you have one dashboard to show your story, and whatever graphs you're going to choose and how you're going to apply the color and how you're going to structure this information to tell your story is in that one dashboard. And the best thing is you're getting a critique on top of it. There's also, I know that they also have different contests, right, where you can win passes to Tableau conference, or I think there were different incentives this year on how to get involved. So I would recommend that. Yes, non-for-profit might be an option, but I really haven't, throughout my career, I haven't really heard a non-for-profit organization that was looking publicly for someone to do their data. You're still working for someone and using the data that they have. And as you might imagine, data governance is extremely for every organization. So that might be more challenging, but I would definitely take advantage of the Makeover Mondays that are available and the communities and see if you can work on that. One thing that I have done, and I think there is someone in the audience who actually has worked with me at Allstate and went through that exercise. But one thing that I have done is I would ask the candidates that apply for data analytics positions to download DV Bytes data. DV Bytes data in Chicago is a free public data. And then do some data structuring, because you download multiple files. So do some data structuring and present a story to me. And when I say present a story, that was very open-ended, right? I didn't want to tell them, well, show me what is going on, what are the opportunities, but present a story, do an analysis and present a story. Well, I served things. A, is there an effort to even do this? Is there an effort to spend time downloading the data and then creating a dashboard? And then two, I was looking for communication. If someone is presenting this dashboard to me, what are they focusing on? I did care about the views that I was getting within that presentation, but more than anything, I cared about the efforts, creativity, and communication on that end. So the person who is in the audience have done an awesome job, and he was a part of the team, but that's kind of what I did as a hiring manager. And maybe that's something you can do proactively before an interview and showcase that as well.
Yeah, I love the idea of having a work product, work sample ready to go, versus having to get told what to do. Let me hand this off to Linnell.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much for speaking today, and thank you, Erin, for putting this on. One of my questions I have for you, actually, you answered one of them already, so I'm going to go with my second question, which is, when you're hiring for new data analysts or new data scientists or anyone who's going to be working on your team, what do you find is the greatest challenge that they have? Because obviously having the technical skills are obviously something that's super important for those roles, but are there other things that you're looking for in regards to someone who might be a great candidate for your team?
Yeah, so like you said, technical skills are the obvious that, you have to demonstrate during an interview process to move forward, and if there's multiple layers of interview. But one thing that I always intrigued me, and I would put that candidate in the top of the file of resumes, is when someone was capable of telling me not only what they did in terms of a project work, so if they did a project on something, but how that project changed what the organization was doing, how it delivered value. And if it's a data scientist and they did a predictive model, and there are obviously results of a predictive model, target variables, and how it was maybe implemented to either improve a process or to make better decisions and so on. But then what did it mean to a bigger picture? How did it change for the organization to be more efficient? How did the organization was able to complete something maybe faster? So, shorter cycle time. Or I don't know, maybe even financial gain. There is a financial gain, right? So being able to communicate this in an interview process has definitely worked for me, and those candidates were always put at the top of the line of candidates, just because now I understood that the person who was working on that project had demonstrated technical skills, was able to use new technology that the organization was using, was able to communicate, but at the end of the day, they were also able to connect the dots. How is that work that they were doing is benefiting the organization?
Awesome.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes. And then the next person coming up. Here we go. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Thanks, Marta. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks a lot for putting together all this awesome evening for us. Marta, my question is a bit in reverse to the earlier caller's question. Apart from recruiting, how do you do the retaining? I represent a small boutique IT firm. I have a small team, but one of the things that I find is that with the changing technology, right? Like I train somebody in learning a new technology and make them better, and then all of a sudden they get snatched by a bigger company. Nothing against your company, but I'm saying like this happens to us when I send a person for consulting to a client location. After all the training, they find a better opportunity and they leave. So how do you manage retention?
Yeah, so obviously I've never had a problem like you do, right? With having my own company and trying to retain individuals. I don't know how would that be, but from a bigger corporate world, the way as a manager, I maximize people's skills. And I strongly believe in that. I don't like pounding on weaknesses. So, and what I mean when I maximize people's skills, I attach them to projects that I know they can succeed. Because once a person succeeds, it's a motivation for them to keep doing what they are doing and getting better at it, because that demonstrated success. And I would pair individuals, data engineers and data analysts together and maximize their skills in order to deliver obviously the best solution and the most successful project to my stakeholders, but then help them learn from each other. And sometimes especially on projects like when I would combine, engineers and analysts, and maybe the analyst wasn't really an engineer or the engineer is not really an analyst. So they would learn from each other. So it's a little different problem. I think the other thing is being supportive of growth. And as a leader in a big organization, I've actually I think one of my goals is to develop individuals and have them succeed and move on. And yes, it's extremely painful for the team always, because if someone is good and we are losing them, then we have to train another person or hire another person. But then seeing their success and seeing their promotion from individual contributors to managers to leaders, that was always a motivation for me. That always kept me going, regardless of what I had to deal with to replace that person. But maximizing people's strengths, that's how I have always done it. And then support growth. And when I say support growth, is obviously moving to different and better roles, but also support growth from skills perspective, making sure that people have skills that are marketable, making sure that they are not stuck just doing the same SQL query or supporting the same exact project type. Giving them a variation of work helps with retention and understanding who your employees are. Obviously, if you have different generations on your team, your baby boomers or Generation X is motivated by something different than your millennials, right? And showing that flexibility within the generation. Millennials love working from home, fluidity with different types of work, with projects. So being able to support this, I think, as a leader is extremely important and helps with retention. Hello?
I'm muted, that's why.
Sorry, I was like, I can hear anything. Is it me?
Man, you're like, your lips are moving, but you can't hear anything. Yeah, no, I was just commenting that that's actually one thing. I mean, the generational issue is actually something that I haven't heard before, but it's very on point because, it's like a little thing, like if you can get your work done and, obviously now most people are working from home, but before if it's like, hey, if you're happier and you can get the same thing done and you can work Fridays from home, like, who cares? It's like as long as it gets done, it's all good. Got a few questions that came in earlier. Hoyt asked if you can give a concrete example of how you use data science for any of your projects at Hartford, if that's something you're able to talk about.
Yeah, so insurance industry is extremely regulated, and sharing some of this will not be appropriate for this conversation. But I think one thing that I can repeat, I think I've said it multiple times through this conversation, is insurance organizations that are going through digitalizations and innovations are applying data science to processes, are applying data science to decision making, right? Informing individual contributors who are connecting with the customers and so on how to be better at what they do and how to ask the driven question. So I cannot really share a specific example. Like I said, the insurance industry is extremely regulated, and we don't really share a lot in a public forum. But just think about how data science is now being used to expand on processes that existed before, maybe were not supported by data.
Of course, yeah. No, there's a lot of like broader themes that not just the insurance industry, but at large, right? If you're in data science, you're looking to optimize processes, you're looking to figure out how to make more money, et cetera, et cetera. We've got one more question, and he is asking, so he's looking to transition into a data analyst role. He's got a computer science background, but was more in ops and support. And he's kind of just asking what, if any, advice you'd have for breaking into the industry and kind of adding to his skill set to do that.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to give similar answer to what I have already gave to the first question that was asked. And that answer will be, let's connect with the community, right? And it doesn't have to be Tableau. I'm sure that different BI tools have communities as well, but like my favorite one is Tableau. So if you connect with a Tableau community, you can start reading the posts about what people are doing with the tool, how are they doing it. Like I said, there are makeover Mondays. There are sessions that are free. You don't have to pay for them. That Tableau will have under your webpage and available for anyone to watch and just understand what is expected or how to use the tool. But then as you're doing that, think about what do you bring to the table? What other skills you possess from your ops roles and support roles that you can apply to data and analytics? Because sometimes the fact that you haven't done this role before does not, to a hiring manager, it's okay to hire people who demonstrate an aptitude to learn this role. It's only depending on where the team is and how big is the team, if they have a room for training and maybe a longer onboarding path. So that's what I would recommend. And then storytelling. I think the most important thing that happens in the interview process is ability to demonstrate that you can tell a story with the data. So creating KPIs, metrics, dashboard, but then being able to connect them to the business. So someone in your case who have an operational experience, you know what the business is looking to achieve and how to achieve this. So you need to learn, or you need to demonstrate how can you create certain metrics and KPIs using what's available from a technology standpoint, and then answer those questions. And that's what I would recommend.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, look, I tell people is use what you have, right? If you have a certain background in a certain industry, don't run away from it. Like, you have an expertise someone else doesn't. So use that. And the other thing the thing I preach is, especially if you're a student in a program, I don't care how old you are, right? It's so much easier to go out, reach out to someone, don't ask for a job, can't give them your resume, but just say, hey, can I have 10 minutes of your time? I'd love to learn more about what data science means in your role or your industry, your company. What kind of problems do you solve? What does day-to-day look like? That kind of thing. You would be surprised at how many people actually respond and are willing to give you some time.
Yep. And I think, to Aaron's point, in data science and in the agile teams right now, there are different roles. There are roles like product manager roles, right? And product manager, you're not really doing the analytics work, but you are working, or data science work, you're working with the data scientist. You help implement changes to the existing processes, right? So you bring to the table your business knowledge, and then as a product manager, you are learning more about the data science. You don't all have to transition to a hands-on data scientist or a data analyst. You can transition into someone in between who is more responsible for communication or delivery of something that the team is working on. And that gives you the window into that data science. And then you can pick which role is more appropriate, which role is more suiting your skill sets and what you want to do, and then invest more time in doing that.
Totally agree. Well, that's all I have time for today. But I really enjoyed the conversation. We had a few really good questions. So I appreciate everyone who participated. I know it's always hard to be the first person to raise your hand, but it's always, you don't want to put yourself out there. But when you do, I think you find that you're able to get some good insights, and obviously here, but also just going forward for those of you who are looking for that next opportunity. Definitely, please reach out to people. It is by far the best way of getting there once you already have all those technical skills. Aside from that, thanks to everyone for coming. This session is being recorded, so it'll be available on the YouTube channel. Let me go ahead and drop that in here as well. And then also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'll be in the lounge after the talk right now. So feel free to come say hello. If anyone has any questions about the full-time immersive data science bootcamp starting in January, feel free to ask me at that time as well. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you guys, like I said, if you guys want to grab more time with me, feel free to connect on LinkedIn, and we can make it happen.